It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine? It's a neighborly day in the beauty, neighborly day for beauty. Won't you be mine? Won't you be mine? Oh, hello neighbors, and welcome to This is Public Broadcasting. I'm your host, Captain Rutledge. 2018 marks 50 years since the premiere of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood on national educational television. In honor of this anniversary, let's take a look back at the life of the gentleman who started it all, Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers was born in Latrobe, Pennsylvania on March 20th, 1928, the son of James and Nancy Rogers. During his childhood, he spent a good amount of time with his maternal grandfather, Fred McFeely, developing an interest in music and learning to play piano. He graduated from Latrobe High School in 1946 and studied music composition at Dartmouth College and Rollins College, graduating in 1951. While at Rollins, he began dating Sarah Joanne Bird. The two eventually married in 1952. Upon graduation, Rogers applied for work at NBC in New York City, working on musical programs, but he felt dissatisfied by the commercialism of NBC. After quitting NBC, he moved to WQED Pittsburgh as a puppeteer for The Children's Corner, while attending classes at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary, eventually graduating from the seminary in 1963. After graduation, Fred Rogers moved to Toronto and was contracted by the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation to perform in a children's program called Mr. Rogers, creating set pieces for puppets that would eventually be used for his later TV shows. Eventually, Rogers acquired the rights to Mr. Rogers, and he moved back to WQED Pittsburgh to continue the program for the Eastern Educational Network. In 1967, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was created by President Lyndon Johnson. The aim? To provide funding for programming on national educational television. Among that programming, the new show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, first premiering in February 19, 1968. Eventually, the series moved away from national educational television and found a new home with the newly formed Public Broadcasting Service, or PBS for short.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine?
Just like in his previous programs, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood featured Rogers in both live action and as a puppeteer, discussing various childhood issues, demonstrating arts and crafts, singing songs, and conversing with friends and guests from around the neighborhood, such as Mr. McFeely, the delivery man, Handyman Negri, and many others. Videos shown on Picture demonstrated to children how people created items like crayons, candles, paper, and other things children may be curious about. Sounds eerily similar to another program coming in afterwards on Canadian television. Stories from the neighborhood of make-believe were one of the show's highlights, featuring human actors and puppets performed by Rogers himself, going through issues discussed within the show. Some of the best-known characters from this segment included King Friday the 13th, Prince Tuesday, X the Owl and Henrietta Pussycat, Lady Elaine Fairchild, and Daniel Striped Tiger. Of course, it's not an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood without the host singing a little song. All the music for the series was written by Fred Rogers himself and performed by jazz pianist Johnny Costa, whom Rogers considered as one of the best men in the business. After Costa's untimely death in 1996, Rogers seriously considered canceling the series. Thankfully, though, the show continued with the spirit of Costa's music. Like many other children's programs, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood featured appearances by many guest stars such as Wynton Marsalis, Margaret Hamilton, Yo-Yo Ma, Lou Ferrigno, and Bill Nye the Science Guy. One of the workers on the program, by the name of Michael Douglas, even made a few appearances throughout the show before moving off to Hollywood to pursue a career in film. Audiences may know him better as Michael Keaton. Rogers himself did guest appearances on other programs for PBS, such as a 1997 episode of Arthur in a 1981 episode of Sesame Street. He even made guest appearances in a 1996 episode of Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, not to mention being a guest on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, with host Joan Rivers.
I write the songs, and John Costa is our musical director who plays them so well.
Do the song, the one that Melissa likes, I Like You.
Oh, good.
I remember that from when she was growing
Well,
up.
I'll sing that to you and everybody else.
No, don't, you'll make me die.
It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the way you do your hair. But it's you I like.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood won 4 Emmy Awards over its initial 33-year run on public broadcasting, culminating with a 1997 Lifetime Achievement Award, presented by a very special neighbor.
So glad to thank you for coming.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here tonight, to be part of your this proud moment. You know, when you tell people that it's you I like, we know that you really mean it.
Let's just take 10 seconds to think of some of those people who have loved us and wanted what was best for us in life. Those who have encouraged us to become who we are tonight. Just 10 seconds of silence. I'll watch the time. No matter where they are, either here or in heaven, imagine how pleased those people must be to know that you thought of them right now.
One of his trademark sweaters, made by his mother, was eventually displayed in the Smithsonian Institution's Museum of American History. In many ways, Fred Rogers was an instrumental pioneer in children's programming, along the lines of Joan Gance Cooney, Lloyd Morrison, and Jim Henson with Sesame Street, and Bob Keeshan with Captain Kangaroo. What made Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood stand out, though, was its tackling of very complex issues with children. Certain episodes of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood dealt with fairly heavy issues like competition, divorce, war, and even death. For a short time, Rogers even had a primetime slot devoted to talking to parents about subjects coming up in the week's shows.
Love, gotta be involved with discipline, giving direction.
You have to want to.
Yeah.
You have to want to, I guess, for yourself as well as for somebody else, don't you?
During the assassinations of Robert Kennedy and John Lennon, special episodes were aired to allay children's fears and help them understand why these things happen.
When I was a boy and I would hear about something scary, somebody getting badly hurt or something like that, I'd ask my parents or my grandparents about it, and they would usually tell me how they felt about it. In fact, my mother would try to find out who was helping the person who got hurt. Always look for the people who are helping, she'd tell us. You'll always find somebody who's trying to help. So even today, when I read the newspaper and see the news on television, I look for the people who are trying to help. One of the most important parts of growing up is learning to talk and play about our feelings. Some people wonder if Mr. Rogers ever gets angry. Of course I do, especially when I hear about people hurting other people or when somebody hurts me.
What else can I say about one of public television's most important children's programs? Fred Rogers always felt that children could spot a phony from a mile away, and so presented his show as genuinely as possible. He never talked down to children and always treated them as equals to adults. He was always kind, patient, caring. He was never rude, and served as a proper role model for both children and adults. When bad things happened in the world, you could always depend on Mr. Rogers to help guide children through the tough times and help them smile. Outside television, Fred Rogers appeared before the United States government on 2 separate occasions. In 1969, Rogers appeared before the United States Senate to support funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
And what a good feeling to feel like this, and know that the feeling is really mine. Know that there's something deep inside that helps us become what we can. For a girl can be someday a lady, and a boy can be someday a man.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
On August 31st, 2001, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood aired its final episode, with Fred Rogers wanting to retire and continue work in the Presbyterian Church. President George W. Bush presented Rogers with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2002 for his contributions to children's education. In 2003, he, along with Art Linkletter and Bill Cosby, served as Grand Marshal of the Tournament of Roses Parade. However, he had been diagnosed with stomach cancer in December 2002, and surgery proved unsuccessful. He eventually passed away on February 27, 2003. His passing was mourned greatly, and several individuals gave tribute, including Mark Brown, Eric Carle, and Michael Keaton. His production company, Family Communications, was renamed the Fred Rogers Company in his honor. Currently, they produce PBS programming such as Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Peg Plus Cat, and Odd Squad, continuing his legacy of quality educational children's programming. I wasn't crying. Well, okay, maybe I was. As for the show that started it all, PBS officially removed Mr. Rogers from its programming lineup in 2008. Certain stations still air episodes, but usually during weekend lineups. In 2017, the streaming video platform Twitch added every episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood to its service, alongside the ranks of Bob Ross's The Joy of Painting and Julia Child's The French Chef. For 2018, Focus Features will be releasing a documentary about the show entitled Won't You Be My Neighbor, premiering at the Sundance Film Festival and scheduled for release in June. On March 6th, PBS will air a documentary about the series entitled It's You I Like, hosted by none other than Michael Keaton. I wonder what time it's getting to be. Well, that's all for this video. Thanks for watching, and as Mr. Rogers always said, you can always make each day a special day, and you know how, by just being yourself. There's only one person in the whole world just like you, and people can like you exactly as you are. For History Review, I'm Captain Rutledge. Good day.